Everyone. So, in the last class, we were going ahead and we were talking about public finance. We already started with this topic of public finance. We talked a bit about what is the debate between equity and efficiency, and what's the need of public finance with respect to the minimal state, right? We gave 3 or 4 pointers related to that. First of all, I want to go ahead and I want to continue with the need of public finance today. And post that, we will jump into the role of public finance, after which we will look into 3 main things: allocative, distributive. So we will talk about that in just a while, huh? As to what is the allocative role, what is the distributive role, and what is the stabilization role. These are 3 main roles which are being performed by the public finance, right? By the government. So we will go ahead and we will talk about that also. Post that, after we have done that for the class today, we will go ahead and we will also, uh, you know, I have, I'll just post after today's lecture some lectures on externalities, right? It's there in microeconomics, but I will just reiterate and post it for you guys there. So I want you to go through those lectures also before the next class. But after that, what I want to go ahead and what I want to do is, I want to talk about what's the distribution effect of taxation in today's class, right? So I want to go ahead and I want to talk about, once the tax is collected, right? How does it affect the distribution of money in the economy, right? So we will be talking about how tax affects the distribution in the economy. And towards the end of today's class, I will talk about certain criterias like utilitarian criteria, egalitarian criteria, and mixed criteria. And I will talk about what those criterias mean in detail, right? So that's the agenda of today's class. Okay. So let us go ahead and let us continue first of all by talking about the need of public finance. So the first need that we already discussed in the last class, that was basically that we needed for the minimal state, right? Then we talked about correction of market failure. That is why we need public finance. Then we talked about the redistribution of wealth and income, for which we need public finance. So we start writing today beta. So need number 4. That is basically your provision of public goods. Provision of public goods. So, of course, if we need any public good, right, like defense, street lights, health, for those, we need public finance, right? So, just give me 1 minute. This will be better. Yes. So, please write down that markets fail to provide public goods like defense, street lights, public health, etc. Because these goods are non-excludable and non-rivalrous, right? Public finance allows government to provide these goods using tax revenue. Using tax revenue. Okay. So this is the provision of the public good. Next need is economic stabilization. Economic stabilization. So what does economic stabilization say? So any economy, it basically goes through a cycle of ups and downs, cycle of the business cycle, the recessions and booms, right? Now, when we are in a period of recession, we need fiscal stimulus from the government. We need government to do spending. We want, so if you go to macroeconomics, we have y is equal to c plus I plus g plus nx. We want this g to increase, right? So we want that the government should have some fiscal stimulus in such cases, right? So in the period of recessions of the business cycle, we need the government to use fiscal stimulus. Similarly, in the period of boom, we need to go ahead and ensure that the government cuts its spending, the government increases the taxes, right? So the government has to play a counter cyclical role. जब इकोनॉमी डाउन है तो खर्चा बढ़ाना है, जब इकोनॉमी अप है तो खर्चा कम करना है. It has to play a counter cyclical role, right? And this will ensure that there will be employment, there will be demand in the economy, right? So this is what the economic stabilization means. So public finance plays counter cyclical role in recession. The government uses fiscal stimulus, increased public spending, tax cuts. In inflation, it uses austerity. That means spending cut, tax hike, right? So if I have this business cycle, right, during the period of boom, G will decrease, tax will increase. And during the period of recession, G will increase and tax will decrease, right? So this helps stabilize employment, demand, and prices, controlling this helps stabilize employment, demand, and prices, controlling the effect of business cycle, thus contributing to economic stabilization, right? Thus contributing to macroeconomic stabilization. So this is the next need for public finance. Then the next need that we have is promoting inclusive growth. Promoting inclusive growth. Promoting inclusive growth. अब बेटा देखो ध्यान से समझो मेरी बात को. When we talk about inclusivity का मतलब क्या है? That we want each and every individual to grow, right? We want that the growth should seep in to all sectors of the economy, rural या urban. Growth should seep in to all people of the economy, rich or poor, right? Irrespective of caste, religion, creed, etc. So that is exactly what we are going ahead and what we are saying here. क्या बोल रहे हैं हम कि चाहे हम विमेन की बात करें, चाहे हम फार्मर्स की बात करें, चाहे हम किसी वल्नरेबल ग्रुप की बात करें, चाहे हम रूरल एरिया की बात करें, ये चार मेन एरियाज होते हैं जो हमें ग्रो करने होते हैं, राइट? फार्मर, विमेन, रूरल एरिया एंड वल्नरेबल ग्रुप. एंड इफ यू लुक इनटू एनी ईयर्स बजट, किसी भी साल का आप इंडिया का बजट उठा लो, you will notice that it is these four sectors which are given priority at all times, right? So basically, promoting inclusive growth exactly means this, that we want to bring in targeted schemes to uplift these four sectors. Acha, isme can you give me one example for each of them? Can you give me one example of farmer, how to uplift the farmer? What has been done in India? Anyone? One scheme that has been used for the farmers. Kisan credit cards, absolutely. So we can go ahead and we can just say PM Kisan program, right? That's the example of the thing which has been done for the farmers, right? Or Kisan Samman Nidhi, right? PM Kisan Samman Nidhi. So basically what is happening is PM Kisan, it's a central sector scheme, right? Uh, I hope I hope you know what is a central sector scheme. So when we talk about the schemes, it can either be funded by the government, or central government, right? Or and funded and implemented by the central government. Or sometimes what happens is that the schemes are partially funded by the central government and partially by the state government and implemented by the state government. Now, when we talk about any central sector scheme, that is basically a government program which is fully funded by central government and implemented by central government. अगर central government ही fund कर रही है और वही implement कर रही है तो उसको हम central sector scheme बोलते हैं, ठीक है? Now, in this central sector scheme, the PM Kisan is a central sector scheme, right? And 100% funding is from the central government. Okay? And it actually started its operation from 2018. Okay. Under this scheme, what is going to happen is that it is going to go ahead and give income support to the farmers. Now, what's an issue that we have been facing? Again, I told you कि कभी भी हमें लिखना है आंसर तो हमें हर चीज से रिलेटेड इश्यूज भी पता होने चाहिए, right? So what's the issue with PM Kisan? What's the issue with Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana? That's the full form of PM Kisan. Well, the issue is that many farmers have not been able to go ahead. Many beneficiaries have not been able to go ahead and get the funding under this scheme. Okay? Although they are eligible, right? And this is something which is to help those farmers, help the small scale expenses, help the lower farmers, right? Still, we have seen that the help has not reached the farmers और इसके बहुत सारे issues हैं. पहला issue ये है कि बहुत सारे farmers के जो land records हैं, उनमें issues हैं. जिसकी वजह से क्योंकि उनके land records inaccurate हैं, outdated हैं, उनकी जो payment है वो delayed है. The second thing is that there is, an exclusion error also, right? जैसे जो हमारे tenant farmers हैं या landless farmers हैं, they're not covered, right? Then there is data gap, ठीक है? This I explained you in many classes. Data gap means what? Discrepancies, right? That you will notice that many times their bank account and Aadhaar card details don't match or they don't have Aadhaar card. उस केस में उनको फंडिंग ही नहीं मिल पाती है, right? And many farmers, of course, they are not even aware of this entire scheme and they don't know, even if they're aware, they don't know how to register themselves and how to meet the procedural hurdles. जो भी procedure है उसको कैसे fulfill करे, they don't know that, right? And that is why recently the government has also introduced Kisan E-Mitra. Mitra means friend, right? So we have introduced an online application for the Kisans. Or mobile apps have been launched and eKYC is being done to streamline this process, right? And we are doing geotagging of the beneficiaries, ताकि fraud ना हो पाए. So some things we are also doing to remove the issues that have been created. So anyways, so inclusive growth को promote करने के लिए farmers के लिए we have introduced PM Kisan. Similarly, when we talk about the women, right? So this is one of my favorite program that has been introduced. Loved it, right? Which is the Drone Didi, right? Drone Didi Yojana. Excellent program, huh? So Drone Didi Yojana basically goes ahead and first of all, why it is an excellent program is that because it is empowering women but also empowering. एक तो जनरल एम्पावरमेंट है कि मैं गई और मैंने women को पैसा बांट दिया, that's also an empowerment, but I'm not doing that. I am helping them learn drone technology for agricultural sector. So I'm uplifting the agricultural sector. I am involving or including a technology in it, and I'm also doing that via women, right? So it's a very good program, Namo Didi, Namo Drone Didi program, right? And this is expected to generate at least an income of 1 lakh per year for each SHG, right? What is SHG? Self-help group of women. तो हर self-help group के लिए 1 लाख रुपए per year extra generate हो ऐसा expectation है इसकी वजह से. What we are doing there is that we are using drones to put fertilizer and pesticides over the land, right? And we are equipping women to do that, right? 15,000 women of self-help groups have been equipped to do that with the help of drones. So it's a very good women empowerment program. Again, उसके लिए पैसा चाहिए ना, पैसा public finance से आ रहा है, वो पैसा revenue tax से आ रहा है, right? So that's another good program which has been launched. Then another group which we want to go ahead and help is the rural groups, right? Tribal communities, the vulnerable groups, right? And of course, anyone who is poor, who doesn't have a job, उनके लिए हमारे पास basic programs हैं, like मनरेगा, like आयुष्मान भारत, right? So inclusive growth में हम इन programs में पैसा डालते हैं क्योंकि ये centrally sponsored हैं, government को पैसा डालना है इसके अंदर. For that, the government needs money. And once the government, it brings these programs, it is able to foster inclusive development, right? So write it with me. Targeted schemes like PM Kisan, मनरेगा, नमो ड्रोन दीदी, आयुष्मान भारत are funded through public finance to uplift farmers, women, rural and tribal communities, vulnerable groups. This fosters inclusive and sustainable development. Inclusive and sustainable development. Seventh. Then you have support to Federal structure. So if any state, they need finance, right? So there are two things here, beta. One is called as vertical equity and one is called as horizontal equity, or vertical imbalance and horizontal imbalance. What happens is that there are two kind of debates. The first debate is कि हम जब सेंटर जो पैसा कलेक्ट कर रहा है उसमें स्टेट्स का कितना पार्ट रहेगा, कि सेंटर और स्टेट के बीच में कितनी इक्वालिटी मेंटेन रहेगी. एंड द सेकंड पार्ट इज कि अगर हम एक स्टेट को दूसरे स्टेट से कंपेयर करें, इफ वी कंपेयर द फंड्स विद डिफरेंट स्टेट्स, राइट, how much is the equality between them? So all states are on same level. When we check the equality between different states, that's horizontal. When we check from between center and state, that's vertical. So basically now what is required is that these states, they also need funds from the center. ठीक है, तो यही बजट में हम बताते हैं कि किस स्टेट को कितना पैसा सेंटर देगा. And also via finance commission we also understand that there are some special states also जिनको थोड़ी ज्यादा पैसे की जरूरत हो सकती है. And also, if you look into the finance commission, one component of distribution from center to state is the discipline, right? तो अगर कोई state disciplined है, वो अपना deficit कम कर पा रहा है, तो center उसको ज्यादा पैसा देगा to encourage the discipline among the states, right? So the fiscal transfer is important, right? From center to state via the finance commission. Finance commission बताता है कि सेंटर से स्टेट में कितना पैसा जाएगा, राइट? और क्योंकि स्टेट्स को पैसा सेंटर दे रहा है, तो सेंटर को पैसा लेना जरूरी है ना, तो उसके लिए भी पब्लिक फाइनेंस जरूरी है, उसके लिए भी टैक्स कलेक्ट करना जरूरी है, राइट? So the need for public finance is to do the fiscal transfer from center to state, is to do revenue sharing, जैसे जीएसटी में हुआ, right? So you have CGST and SGST, right? Is to do grant in aids for centrally sponsored schemes, right? So you can write down that in federal countries like India, public finance ensures fiscal transfer from center to state via finance commission. Shared tax revenue, that is example GST compensation. Grant in aid for centrally sponsored scheme, right? Eighth, debt and deficit management. Debt and deficit management. तो बेटा अगर हमने पास्ट में कोई भी डेट रेज किया है, राइट, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल if we have taken loan from IMF or from any foreign organization, or if we are running a deficit, right, then we need public finance to meet those deficits, to meet the debt, to make interest payments, right? So public finance. So write down public finance. Tracks and manages fiscal deficits, public debt, and interest obligation, ensuring fiscal prudence and sustainable budgeting. Right? Then we have ninth one, building strategic capabilities. Building strategic capabilities. So whenever we have to build any strategic capability, माने अगर मुझे कहीं पे R&D में पैसे लगाना है, रिसर्च एंड इनोवेशन में लगाना है, like ISRO, right? Like DRDO, right? या अगर मुझे कोई भी डिजास्टर रिलीफ फंड बनाना है, right? Yeah, if I have to go ahead and I have to do something for suppose building up something related to say atomic bomb or something else, like any strategic capability that I'm building, so that will be funded through public finance. So public finance, it funds these things, right? So that is another uh, thing which can be done. So basically, try to understand that public finance is why public finance is important, because the state, the government has to perform activities. क्या activities करनी है? लोगों के welfare को देखने की activity, stability economy में maintain करने की activity, development करने की activity, right? So when you are doing these activities, to perform these activities, you need public finance, right? So let's conclude that the need for public finance arises from essential economic functions the state must perform for collective welfare, economic stability, and development, right? This is the need for public finance. Okay. Now, beta, let us talk about the role of public finance. So I hope